from a recent conversation on the importance of agile leadership in our current evolving workforce, Alison shared with me the concept of VUCA as well as
But
BANI, two
mhm.
facts which are absolutely amazing as matter of leadership and the ability of leaders to be effective in unpredictable or turbulent waters and such like. And we're so happy to have Alison give further perspective to these concepts today as an important element for driving effective leadership in in this turbulent environment. Go right on ahead, Alison, about these concepts.
No problem. So basically, VUCA is a framework for understanding all of this disruption that we see and we experience within our society. It originated within the military, but it has made its way into business and into organizations and so forth. So basically, what VUCA is, or what VUCA describes, is it stands for V, volatile, which talks about the fact that we experience changes in rapid and unexpected ways. The U stands for uncertain, so it lacks predictability. The C stands for the fact that it's complex. There are so many interconnected parts. When we think about all the things that are going around with this, it's not just one thing, it is many things combined. And it's also ambiguous. There is so much information, and much of it might be unclear and open to many interpretations. So when we look at the volatility or the disruption within our world from the framework of VUCA, not only does it give us an understanding of what's going on, but it helps us to also kind of decide, like, how do we want to respond? Is it volatile? If some things are going to be rapid and unexpected, what do we need to have into consideration? We probably need to figure out, how are we going to respond to crises within our organizations, within our companies? If predictability does not happen, if sorry, there's a lack of predictability, then we've got to put systems and processes in place, or ways of managing that. So it just gives us a way of thinking and understanding the disruption that's around, so that we can respond in a way that makes sense for our environment. So that's VUCA. No, what has happened since
Before
VUCA?
before you
Yeah.
touch the other concept,
Yes.
the issue of volatility, stands out here very much with me. And you made mention to the fact that volatility refers to the rapid change or changing, factors that are taking place and they are outside of your control.
Control. Yes.
How does a leader how does a leader control that which they don't control? Does that
But they
make sense?
can't. Yeah, and they can't. And I think actually that's the point that probably needs to be made. I think for many people, there is a comfort that comes from having a sense of control, that comes from knowing that when this happens, then this follows, then this follows. And there's a comfort that comes from that. But if we hold on to that type of thinking, and we hold on to that type of approach in the midst of crises, then it means that we put our companies and we put even our staff at risk. So think about, like, COVID again, that was a very rapid and unexpected change. And there were so many companies that grappled with the idea that we need to send home workers. We can't have people within our organizations being sick. We can't have them bringing the sickness into our organizations. What will that mean in terms of maybe equipment that they're going to take? What does that mean in terms of maybe platforms that we can use to facilitate conversations? It is about letting go of the sense of control, so that you have freedom then to make choices and to think about options and solutions that are out there and that you can implement within your organization.
So would you say that, this really is indicator for leaders to engage in understanding crises or even in training, crisis management training, so that they can better manage that aspect of the VUCA, the volatility of the VUCA, with crisis management training and crisis management planning support that aspect of it?
Yeah, I do think so, and especially there's always, you never know what the next crisis is going to be, but if you are expecting and you are
Yes.
looking, you've looked at the past and you know that something is going to come, then knowing that you've got a plan in place, if we do have a crisis, at least these are the people that we are going to call on. This is the type of process or procedure that we may go through, and I am not an expert in crisis management or crisis training, but for sure it gives you that framework for what you need to do when you have to respond rapidly, when you have to respond quickly to changes and to situations that happen. At least you know who are the people that you're going to bring into your inner circle to help you make the decisions that need to be made.
No, no, you also say that you spoke to uncertainty, and there's no question that we are in an era where I mean, the level of uncertainty is, I mean, probably beyond leaders. Again, how do you manage the uncertainty, and
Yeah.
how do you keep your teams motivated and settled in this type of uncertain environment? Because the uncertainty is not just affecting you in your leadership role or affecting the organization, it's affecting the teams and the employees in organizations. How do you manage that uncertainty, as a leader, and keep your team or your employees feeling settled in a space so that they can be their best productive selves?
And I think you use your employees in this situation. Um,
Uh,
I, in situations that are VUCA, that are so disruptive, it can never be a one-man show. One person will never have all the answers, but together with all of our knowledge, all of our experience, all of our different insights, we are better able to come up with the plan. And I think that's also core to being agile. Agile speaks to collaboration. If something is going to be uncertain, if you can't predict what's going to happen, you need to bring in the expertise of those that's around you, and you're hiring your people because you do believe that they're expert in a particular area.
yes.
So this is where you harness and collaborate with them in order to come up with the best solution with the information you have, because you will not have all of it, but you have the best solution for the information that you've got at the point in time.
Yeah, yeah. I like the idea of bringing in the people. I am really big on collaborative leadership that,
Yes.
embraces the viewpoint of others, where have conversations with fellow leaders when you are not certain. And, we call it vulnerability, we call it all kinds of things. My strength when you are in VUCA, where there's volatility and uncertainty and ambiguity and things of that nature, then I mean, you're obligated to have conversations with other.
Collaborate.
Yeah, you have to. You have to.
Yes.
How else are you going to, survive in that type of environment? So tell us a little as well. That was on the VUCA. Tell us a little about the BANI,
Yeah.
BANI as well. The BANI.
No, no problem. So VUCA describes the external environment. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. It speaks to the external environment. But over the years, researchers have thought that it does not fully take into consideration all of the chaos and predictability that can sometimes happen and the impact that it has within our environments. So the BANI framework is created by, and I hope that I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Jame Casio, and it really highlights the internal dynamics and the psychological impact of disruption on people and on organizations. So BANI, BANI, it stands for B, brittle. So systems that seem strong suddenly break under pressure. And we know what happened during COVID when there was extreme difficulty in getting or in moving the COVID vaccine throughout the world because our strong logistical systems were not able to keep up with the demand and to keep up with the pressure of quickly moving things around the world.
You say, and you say that appears strong. So that
Appears
suggests to me that there's an illusion of strength that does not actually exist.
Well, I would say it is strong when there are no crises. It is
Ah,
strong when
yeah,
situations are normal and as expected. When things are standard, that's when you see the strength of it. The brittleness occurs when something comes into the environment that all of a sudden disrupts it. And I mean that's disruption. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where we find the brittleness of these systems. So that's brittle. So A stands for anxious, where that constant unpredictability can create a lack of trust within people. And then, of course, this creates widespread anxiety, and it also stifles decision making. Because if you're anxious, if you don't trust what people are saying and you don't trust what is happening, then it's hard to make a decision. So again, is that psychological impact that people feel during disruption and during chaos and unpredictability.
And does the lack of information play a part in that as well? Because if I have information, it helps to, reduce my level of anxiety. If I don't have information, then my anxiety levels are likely to go up. So does information play a role in that as well?
Actually, sometimes it could be too much information as well, because when we think about the world that we live in, where there is so much information available, some of it is accurate, some of it is not. There is so much information, and you're trying to determine who to trust. And I think this is where in organizations, like building trust through communication and through transparency is so important. So you might not, like, within organizations, you might not have all the answers, you might not know everything, but I think being clear with people about this is the information we have. No, these are the decisions that we're making based on this information. It might change in the future, we don't know, but that's the type of information that you want to give people. And even though it might feel, I can imagine a leader saying, oh, I don't want them to know that I don't know, or I don't want them to think there's other things out there. I want to provide them with a sense of confidence, but also that transparency does provide a sense of confidence. So when a change occurs, it doesn't feel like it's out of the blue. You've already
Yeah.
warned them that something might change. They're expecting it. So one of the ways in which we need to build trust and we need to get rid of anxiety is just being transparent. Like, hey, like you, I don't know, this is what I have, and I'm gonna make the
Yeah.
best decision based on what I have. But when I get more information, I'm gonna update my decision to suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And again, I think like people experience this during COVID as well, especially when we think about the American situation where the government was changing decisions left, right, and center. But more than anything, what really created distress for people is that there was no sense of, information is being updated and we will inform you as information is updated. It was just strictly, this is what we're doing. Oh, then that's changed. This is what we're doing now. They did not instill that trust in people from the perspective of,
I
this is just the decision we're making based on what we have. More information is going to come. And as it comes, we are going to update you.
Yes. So again, having that open line of communication seems to be important within the context of BANI.
Yes, and because I think when it comes to crisis situation, when it comes to things that people are struggling with, we need to be really careful how we marshal their emotions, how we marshal their psychology. People in crisis will understand things may change, but you need to be upfront with them about that from the very beginning, as opposed to
Yes.
pretending that you've got the answer and they're flowing with this certainty, and then it's like pulling the rug right from under their feet. So I think that's the thing that we have to avoid in disruptive situations. Avoid pulling the rug from under people's feet.
So when we tie this now back into this whole idea of agile leadership, I seem to hear you saying that again, leaders need to be open, they need to be upfront, they need to be honest with the information that's available to them. They are conscious that they are in a very precarious type of situation, and letting people know is an important aspect of agile leadership. Am I hearing that?
You are absolutely hearing it. You are you are absolutely hearing it. That just that openness with people, and also it then allows you to use that wonderful vast set of minds are coming together. You can create your own AI.
Yeah.
you've got, you've got all of this information now that you can pull on to find a solution, to find a way forward that makes sense for the business. Because
Yeah.
again, if we continue on looking at the BANI framework, where N stands for nonlinear, which means that cause and effect isn't predictable. You can sometimes the smallest thing might have the biggest impact. Or you might be thinking, oh, this nice big chunky piece of work that I'm gonna do, this is what is going to create such a big impact within our organization, and it doesn't. But again, it is about harnessing that collective information, harnessing the minds of the people that you're working with, so that you can have a better idea. And you mentioned it, Jerry, in the webinar when you talked to, I can't, what was the term you used? I wrote it down. The gimbal walk, where 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 you go on the front lanes, because the people at the front who are working with the customers, who are working with the systems, they have a better appreciation of the impacts of how things work together, how things combine, how things interact with one another. And it is that information, is that type of input that you want in your decision-making process, as opposed to just sitting down siloed in ivory tower, coming up with what you think is best. You need that collaboration again and again and again.
And you see this nonlinear element of the N in the BANI.
Yes.
That, to my mind, I mean, just thinking about that as a leader, that invokes a lot of fear because, what was the term you used? That
Cause and
cause,
effects
yeah, cause and effect
aren't
is
predictable.
predictable. No,
Yes.
causes me, an element of
Anxiety.
fear and anxiety right away
Yes.
because I am attempting to apply, known methodologies towards the resolve of a particular issue, but I'm being told that even though I have done the right thing and I have come up with what could be a predictable outcome, that outcome may not necessarily be accomplished. That's what I seem to be hearing. Now,
And yeah.
it makes me feel as though I have not led correctly. I have failed. I have misguided my organization. I have misrepresented my leadership skills. That's a tough thing for leadership, And how do I survive as a leader in that type of space?
Yeah, and I think is where that mindset of certainty has to step back. Where if we are in a world that is disruptive, then we have to be open to experimentation. We have to be open to risk taking. We have to be open to failure, with the understanding that this may work or this may not work. If we set our sights and we hold on so tightly to the fact that I'm doing this, so it has to give me this outcome, then it closes us off from, number one, maybe putting things in place to mitigate potential negatives that might be as a result. And it even causes us not to even consider fully what are the potential risks that might be associated with this particular thing that we're implementing. So we need to let go of certainty. We need to be open to experimentation, and experimenting correctly. So one of my
Yeah,
um
yeah.
one of my favorite organizational psychologists often talks about intelligent failures. So if where we are trying something and which is experimentation, but doing it in a safe way. So if you've got something that is new, that is innovative, that's different, if there's a process or procedure that you think is going to make a big impact and you want to implement it, you need to test it first. You don't just put it out to market, put it out to your people immediately without testing to see, well, what's the potential impact that this is having? And those are the types of things that we know need to build into the way that we manage, and that have to be inherent in Agile. We do a little bit, we see what happens, we iterate, then we go again, we iterate, we go again. That, again, it's that mindset shift. It will not be, there's no cause and there's no predictable cause and effect. We've got to see what's going to happen and respond accordingly.
Well, you know what I just heard from you that took the
Oh,
pressure off of me as a leader is
oh,
that all I need to communicate to my team is that, look, this is this is an environment where we can succeed or fail, but we will keep going. And do understand that all that I attempt to do in this very difficult environment may not work, but collectively we will go at it again because we're not going to give up. That immediately takes some pressure off of me because we are in a space where you have, the varying iterations occurring, and it's now not about me and me leading change in a hostile or a highly volatile environment. It's about us taking this environment and testing different opportunities for correction, for progress, for production, for development, for whatever. And we may fail, but if we fail, we're going to get back up and go again. I, as a leader, an agile leader, I'm now not under, significant pressure. I am now part of a team, almost part of an ecosystem, so to speak, that is focused on resolution. More so, you get where I'm going with that.
yes, it takes the pressure off of you. You're not carrying this bag alone. You've got others helping to carry this burden with you, and you've created a safe ecosystem in which they can fail and make the changes and go again. That to me, that feels freeing and relieving, because that's what you're saying. It feels like
Yeah,
a relief.
yeah, yeah. My feet are, well, you can't see my feet, but my feet are going like this. So good. Because you see, again, this is agile leadership, in practice.
Yes.
And it now brings you from out of your leadership role into a member.
Facilitative. Yes. Yes.
So the agility, captures this idea of team collaboration, feeling together, rising together, doing it. I mean, that's so powerful. That's
Yeah.
so powerful. And then there's the I
Yes.
in BANI.
It
Tell us about that.
so the A stands for incomprehensible, because the volume and complexity of the information that we have makes it hard to make sense of what's happening. And we see like all the stuff about fake news as an example. You can't tell what is real and what's fake. AI has done a wonderful job as well of making things appear real that are not. So there's so much information out there. It is so complex as well. That's kind of hard to make sense of what's happening. And that's what incomprehensible stands for. I just got to drink some water.
Yes, please.
Right. So it's also, I think, in terms of information being incomprehensible, again, this is where collaboration is necessary, because there are bits and pieces of the information that certain team members will know and understand better than you. And I think as a leader, your job is to get all of those experts together, because you have a strategic vision. So you're looking at the information that they're sharing with you, and then you, in an agile way, thinking in an agile way, are looking at how the connections are make sense for the situation that you're in, and you find your sense making in that way. But again, with others, use the experts within the organization so that there is less of a feeling of overwhelm. There's a less of a feeling of the anxiety as well when it comes to making sense of all this information. And also be willing to modify again and change and iterate when new information comes in that adjusts to what you already have. And I think that's the key. The key is we always must be willing to iterate when new information comes in. How do we update the things that we're doing to represent what is current now?
Yeah, and I mean, what this brings to mind is almost um, a space of information overload, where,
Yes.
where you've got so much information coming at you that you cannot properly assess it, to make sense of it. And as a result, it leaves you feeling a bit scattered as a leader. And this is information that is flowing in, from the context of the organization. It's not in the organization. Change is occurring outside of the organization at a far more rapid rate than the organization can actually digest it, so to speak. And as a result, it puts pressure on the organization to adapt to the change that is occurring, so that it is not left behind, that it can remain competitive, yeah,
Yes. And
and
relevant. Yep.
and relevant. And again, this puts pressure on leadership, and it brings us right back to the whole idea and conversation of agile leadership, and why agile leadership is of absolute importance in a rapidly evolving world where uncertainty and ambiguity and additional knowledge is coming. Everything is coming very, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
manager
Yeah.
is it has this responsibility on his or her shoulders to take all of this and make it happen. What a world we are in. What an amazing space. I mean, it can spark some fear, but for me, it really ignites, it ignites a challenge. Let's go
Yeah.
for this. Bring it on. Let's
Exactly. There is such a joy of thinking to yourself, I am with a community of people. There's something that is trying to challenge us, but we're gonna turn this into our opportunity for ourselves.
do
And
this.
we are working together to figure out how.
Let's do
That's the
this.
essence of the human spirit, we want to overcome challenges together.
Well, listen, Alison, thank you so very much for, this, backstage conversation from our webinar,
Yes.
and giving some more context to these two very important methodologies that
Yes.
have been very much impacting leadership and how leadership responds and leadership experiences and such like. Really appreciate it. Your knowledge of these things I must highly commend. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you.